Hello everybody, this is Yasmin from Yarkspiri and today I'm actually going to be going through the brush presets here. I'm going to do this in combination with the brush tool as well. There is a lot of information I need to cover just based off this one tool because there's so many options available. So first and foremost, let's start with the brush tool. So as you can see, I'm going to show you my brushes here. I have the soft round brush selected. So this is a default brush. No changes have been done to it. It is the default brush and it has its default presets already established within this. So I'm just going to create a new layer right now so you can see this a little bit better. And as you can see, I just have the default soft brush, so nothing's been added. It's really simple. And I'm going to go through some of these presets now. Okay, so when you open this menu, the first thing that you'll get is you'll have a display of all your brushes, and it shows you a sample of how this brush will essentially behave once you start painting with this. So I do have a significant number of brushes because I do have some specialized brushes and other brushes that are just normal as well. So these will depend according to what you have as a brush preset. Now if you go in here, you can change some of your information. You can create a new brush preset. You can load brushes that maybe you've downloaded from the site or from another artist. You can save your own brushes, you can replace your brushes. Photoshop comes with a select few brush presets that you can change to. So between the sorted brushes to the wet media brushes, these are all the default brushes that come with Adobe Photoshop CS5. You can also change how this displays. Right now I have it set to stroke thumbnail, so essentially it's showing me how the brush will behave with a single stroke. So if I do a stroke that's similar to what you see here, you'll notice that it behaves very much like the display does. It's pretty similar. So that does help. I can change it to a larger list. If I change it to that, essentially it just increases the size of the thumbnail, but it doesn't show me any preview of how it will work. I can also set it to a smaller list so I can see more brushes at the same time. I can set it to larger thumbnails as well. Now for this tutorial I'm going to keep it onto the stroke thumbnail just because the information on that is much more relevant to what you'll probably need in the future. So I'm setting that back. Now as you can notice, I do have a couple different tabs here. So this just covers the brush presets itself. It doesn't change any of the attributes of the brush, so how it affects or how it scatters. All that information needs to be changed with this, the brush settings here. So as you can see, within this one menu, I have several different changes I can do to the brush. So if I click on here, as you can see, I have my thumbnail here once again, and this is showing me that I have the soft default round brush. It's also giving me a preview of how this brush will interact. So let's say I go to the shape dynamics. So the moment you click on the word here, it will automatically add a check mark onto this. But I can change several of the attributes here. So I can change the size jitter if I want. I could reduce it or increase it. And this will help give it a little bit more of an organic feel, so depending on what type of brush you have. I can also set it so that it becomes sensitive to my pen pressure. So if I click here, as you can see, I can change the tilt, just the pen pressure, can fade it. So all these are very useful attributes as long as you know how they behave. Now it does require some experimentation. So right now I have the shape dynamic. That's the one change I've done. So I'm just going to show you how that looks. As you can see, there's not too much of a variation, but it is starting to fade in and out. And it gives it just a little bit more of that organic feel. And it is pressure sensitive, so the harder I press on my tablet, the darker the line will appear. I'm just going to erase all this. As you can see, if I change the diameter, what it does is actually increases or decreases the amount of texture that's actually added in my little preview here. It doesn't actually change the brush size. The brush size does stay according to what you already have set. Okay, so as you can see, you can also change the angle jitter. So once again, this is you won't notice it too much with the brush that I currently have, but depending on what type of brush you have, you'll notice a bigger difference on here. This one's already set to pen tilt. Once again, you can change between your options here. You can change the stylus wheel, pen tilt. Pen tilt was the default, so I'm just going to leave that. So if I change the roundness jitter, you'll notice that it changes it quite a bit depending on how I change it. Essentially, it flattens the circular amounts, and it changes how it's blending together, so now it has more of a texture effect to it. The minimum roundness, that's another thing you could change. So it's going to change the minimum, because with the jitters, it tends to alternate between the size of the texture that's added within it. So you can change that as well. You could flip this according to the jitter. So these are minor changes, but these do make a fairly large overall difference to your overall brush settings. Okay, so that's for the shape dynamics. I'm just going to turn that off. So scattering. Scattering is very interesting, because what you can do is you can increase how much the brush offsets from itself. So if I reduce this to essentially 0, it produces a straight line. But the more I increase the scatter, the more the little dots that make up the texture or the brush get pulled in all various directions. I can also change this to affect both axes. So as you can see, it actually produces more of a texture rather than an actual brush. I can change the control once again in this menu here. This is normally pretty standard for most brushes, so just keep that in mind. I can change the amount of texture that's added within it. The count, so how many items are in that. So all these are very useful. You can also add a separate texture. So what the texture does is, if you click here, you have normally your default settings. You can normally upload new patterns. As you can see here, I can upload a new one if I want one. I can load patterns. I can reset my patterns. I could save patterns and replace them. So there's some presets here, as you'll see. Once again, this comes standard with Adobe Photoshop CS5. Okay, so I can change the scale of the pattern as well. The sample stays the same size, but essentially what you're doing is you're zooming into that sample image to create the texture. You can also texture the tips, so it's going to fade in and out. Right now it's set to color dodge. I can set it to overlay, so this changes how it's actually going to blend in with the brush. So I can darken it, I can subtract it, color dodge it is the default. I can also change how much of this texture is actually affecting an overall brush. I could set a dual brush, and essentially what that's going to do is I can select two brushes from which the two brushes will interact. So right now I have my default that's already set to the soft round brush, but I could select a secondary brush along with it, and it will essentially mix in these two brushes together to create a new brush, a new unique style of brush. So if you just take a look at this one here, as you can see, it has an interesting texture to it. It's different, which is actually pretty cool. You can increase the size, the spacing once again, scattering, and how many items are within this as well. I'm just going to turn that off. Okay, sorry about that. I can't actually show you guys the color dynamics because it is too difficult for my computer to process, so it keeps on shutting down Adobe Photoshop. My computer is an older computer, which is why that's occurring. So please be aware, though, if you use the color dynamics, it's changing the colors dynamically as you paint. And because of that, it is very difficult on certain computers, so I do recommend you steer away from this unless you have a powerful enough computer, because it can cause issues. So I'm just going to turn that off because I don't want to keep this on because my computer cannot handle it. Okay, so we'll go to the transfer setting here. As you can see, I can change the opacity of my brush. I can change the flow, how it actually melts together, the minimum size. I can set that to pressure. Now, depending on which brush you're using, you do have sometimes some additional controls. So these are not actually highlighted for use for this brush, but I can set the wetness jitter, the minimum, max jitter, and the minimum for that. But these are more dynamic brushes. With these brushes, though, you also may run into crashing issues as well, so just keep that in mind. Unlike these top settings here, where you have several choices in which you can actually like modify the brush, these couple here are actually preset. So if I turned any of these on and off, essentially it will apply the setting as is, and you can't really do any more changes than what is occurring in your preview. So if you do want to do certain changes, you're probably actually going to use these top menus up here instead because they are better suited for this. Okay. So in this tab, there's also the clone source tool. I will be going over that when I'm actually covering the clone tool. Right now, I'm just covering the brushes, so I'm not gonna cover that right now. So if you go on the top here, you'll notice that I have several different presets in which I can play with. Over here, I have a drop-down menu where I can actually choose some presets here. I can also go once again. I can choose some, load some, or save presets as well. So I'm not going to touch that right now. If you click down here, once again, it's going to show you your brushes. It also shows you the current size that your brush is set at, as well as how the brush is actually intermixing with its environment. So I have it set to the round brush, and by default it has feathered edges. But if I want, I can change it so that it has less so feathered edges. So right now it's set to full, but the more I remove this, the harder the edges on the outside will appear once I paint it. So I'm just going to go back here, set that back to 0. Now, important fact is that unless you actually save a new brush preset, any changes that you make to the brush will not be saved, so they tend to get set back to their default setting the moment you change brushes. So if you click on this here, create a new brush preset for this brush, it will create a new preset in which you can actually just select that brush afterwards. If you click on here, once again you have all the same presets as on the top there. So you can load, save, replace brushes, load, and reset brushes if you need to. So let's say I don't want to use all these brushes. I want to reset them. I can reset my brushes, and it will replace it with the default brushes that are in Photoshop. So these are actually the default brushes that come with Photoshop. But now I'm actually going to load my brush presets to which I've saved. So you do have to select where the location of these files would be. So in my case, I have them saved here in my main folder. So this is my combined brushes here. So if I load those, all my brushes will be brought back up. So as you can see, they're all back up on my menu here. Okay, so Now if I click here, essentially all it does is it opens up my brush presets, so I can change my settings if I want to. So I don't want to do that right now. I can also change the blending mode. Now this is very interesting because these blending modes do behave entirely differently than how the blending modes in your layers panel will actually behave. So essentially what's happening is if I choose perhaps the dissolve brush, and I have my default round brush right now, but I've set the mode to dissolve. It's actually going to allow me to paint a dissolved grainy look onto the surface. So essentially what's occurring here is that it's applying the blending techniques that's also available in your layers panel to your brush itself. I can also set the opacity of my brush here. So right now I have it set to 30%. If you ever need to change your opacity settings, all you have to do is click your numbers. So the numbers 0 to 7 on your keyboard are essentially percentages numbers. So 1 is 10%, 2 is 20%, and 3 is 30%. Now, if you want to get 100%, then you have to actually type in 10 as a number. Okay, so if I click this, this sets the tablet pressure controls, and it will override my brush presets. So keep that in mind, is if you have certain brush presets, they may not be compatible the moment you press this. The flow, it changes how your brush will interact. If I set the flow to 39%, it begins to behave differently than what you saw before. So my opacity is actually set to 100, but essentially what it's doing is it's allowing for a more gradual increase in the coloring, and that changes dynamically according to what you have. So I'm just going to set this back to 100 because I actually don't normally use that setting. Okay, you can also set airbrush mode and tablet pressure controls. Once again, these three buttons. This area here is actually not an area that I use, so I don't use any of these buttons. I essentially just use the brush as is. You'll find too, the more experience you get with actual digital painting or painting in general, that the brush type actually doesn't matter in the overall piece. It's your skill in how you're able to apply your general knowledge with the medium, any medium whatsoever, that contributes to the finalized image. So changing your brush presets will make a huge difference, so just keep that in mind. Now your brush does come with some interesting types. So if I click in here, you'll be able to see them a little bit better. So as you can see, I have the normal brush tool. I also have the pencil tool. I also have a color replacement tool and the mixer brush tool. The mixer brush tool is actually a very interestingly unique brush. It behaves very differently though, so it actually behaves more like an actual brush. It allows for blending of different colors. So in order to do this example, first I'm going to set it back to my default brush because I need two colors here. So I'm just going to put two really bright colors next to each other. Okay, so I'm just going to change my brush back to the blending brush and increase its size. So essentially what it's going to do is I have pink selected in my colors here. So it's going to blend based off the pink. So it's going to just slowly add in that pink color. So how this brush works is essentially begins behaving like a oil brush, which is quite interesting because you can essentially mix your media. Now you will probably run into certain issues where if you try to sample a color, so let's say I try to sample the blue here, it doesn't seem to sample all that well. So you do actually have to use the eyedrop tool to do that and go back to your brush tool. And then you'll be fine for that. So that's just one thing I've noticed over time is that the sampling does not work the same way as a normal brush, because normally I can just hold down the Alt key and I'm able to sample, but it actually does not work the same way with this preset. So you do have to actually physically enter the switch to the eyedrop tool in order to be able to sample a different color. So as you can see, it's actually very useful. I tend not to use this mainly because I work in grayscale. Different artists have different techniques. You can also, if you have a flattened image, so if I turn this off and I turn off the text here, I can use this brush on my background once I enable it to actually blend in the colors once again. Now, once again, that's not something I use personally. I don't find it all that useful, so there is a lot of a fairly intensive learning curve that could be applied to this one tool. As you can see on the top here, you can change how much pigment is added within the brush. You can increase how much of a blending option is applied to it, how much it's mixing, how much to flow. So all these attributes are actually very similar to an actual physical brush. So this brush does behave like an actual oil in that sense. But personally, I find it's not necessary unless you're actually trying to do an extremely finished piece, finalized image. My illustrations are normally only about 5 to 6 hours on average, unless I'm doing a finalized image. So for this reason, I don't require these sets. But if you really want to have some nice nice blending options for your skin tones and all that, you can apply this feature, and it is a very useful feature. So not too many people are aware of this feature, but it is an extremely useful feature. So as for the remainder 2, I don't use letter 2. You can set it to pencil. So essentially, you can set it to a pencil, and essentially it's going to start drawing in light of pencil. You could also choose the color replacement. So it's going to modify the existing color. I don't find any of those tools extremely useful, so I don't use them. For painting purposes, you're probably going to stick mostly to your normal brush tool. You won't need the mixer brush tool all that much, to be honest. So just stick with the normal brush tool and you'll be fine. So that's it for the brushes. Next week I'm probably going to go over the stamp tool since I didn't cover it in this tutorial. The stamp tool is actually really useful if you're modifying an existing image, or you're trying to fix maybe some tears in a scanned image or illustration. So it's a very useful tool. But there is certain things you need to keep in mind when using it, because it can cause some issues. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.